Today we are exploring fiqh issues. We have Sayyid Mohsin Shah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Good
Thank
to
you for having
see
me.
Good to see you. It's
Nice
our
to see
pleasure.
you
It is
too.
our pleasure indeed.
So today's topic is hijab issues.
Okay.
So we have a question, and
Fire
if I may, I'll go ahead
Oh,
and
please
read
do,
it.
sister. Please do.
So a mother has written in, my 16-year-old daughter is going through a phase and seeing Instagram of hijabi models wearing tons of makeup and part of their hair showing, and she wishes to replicate their style. I keep reminding her that this is not the hijab of Lady Fatima Salamun alayha, but she tells me I am like a dinosaur living in the dark ages, referring to the mother. How can I teach my daughter her proper hijab in this age and environment? And that's a question from the USA.
MashaAllah. Okay, fantastic question. I guess a lot of parents are going through such difficulties teaching the ways of Islam to their youngers. And also it should start at an early age so that these children are tailored and also directed towards a correct Islamic lifestyle. On top of that, we should try and delve into the philosophy behind why we follow such practices. For example, we don't eat pork, or we fast in Ramadan, and we wear hijab. And why do we do these things? Why do we stay away from pork? Why do we fast? Why do we wear hijab? What's the importance of hijab? And what impact does it have on society? What impact does it have on yourself? What impact does it have on those around you? When it comes to fiqh and ahkam, we know that it is wajib upon a lady, a sister, to wear hijab as soon as she reaches the age or the period of which they call bulugh. For ladies, it's mainly 9, 10, 11, around that period. It's when it starts. We also have in Islam, counter argument, a lot of people say is that there's no compulsion in religion. And let's be real, we can't force people to do what we want them to do. We can do our best, and a form of discipline is instilled in the household. For example, if you don't pray Maghrib and Isha, you're not getting dinner. Something simple and can be very effective in that way to instill Islamic habits. With hijab, it is more difficult. Me myself, I'm not a lady, so I can't really comment too much on the the battle and the struggle between hijab and non-hijab, and there goes my button. But what I can say from a fiqh point of view is that you must do your best to uphold the Islamic values and the Islamic law within the household, especially if you are at a stage where you would like your children to submit their will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and live a halal lifestyle.
Say, just as a point of clarification, you say that the fuqaha rule that hijab is wajib, it's mandatory.
Indeed.
But there does seem to be from some corners, some kind of ambiguity injected into the discussion. They say, oh, no, the Quran says it's highly recommended, it's a better form of modesty, it's nice, it would be Islamic, but then it's not mandatory. Could you just put a straightener on that for us, just so we can...
No, it is mandatory. I mean, the Quran explicitly says for the ladies to cover their hair, to cover their bosoms. There's no, what we can say, like controversy, or there's no like mixed opinions. There is a general consensus that a lady who has reached the age of maturity, for a girl who's 9 years old, that she must cover herself from the hairline around. Must cover her hair. She must cover her torso, her arms up to the wrists, her legs up to the ankles, and even some of the marajas say even she has to cover the feet. So she has to wear
some
socks.
say feet are aura as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There's mixed opinions on that.
Yes.
But also the general consensus say that she has to wear garments which hide her physique. So it's not just that, oh, I've got full sleeve top on, trousers, socks, I'm covering my hair, I'm okay, I'm legit. No, if it's tight, unfortunately we see people in the gym with very, very tight clothing, even sometimes muhajjaba. This is not acceptable. You can't wear that.
Okay.
In a mix gathering.
Yes.
That's not acceptable in public.
So this lady, alhamdulillah, her daughter wears hijab by the sounds of it, and she's seeing these Instagram hijabi models that are wearing lots of makeup and part of their hair showing, and she wants to replicate that. So that's something that's really coming up, isn't it? You can see in the youngsters trends, sisters that make up tutorials online.
Indeed.
and caked completely, eyebrows, everything. It's
MashaAllah.
you know, a piece of art, but obviously not in the context of Islamic you know, permission, and then obviously the hair showing. So when they're looking at role models, now the mother's referring to a role model of Lady Fatima Salam Alayha, and this girl is looking at hijabi models as her role model. Where is that coming from, and what is it that the mother can, how can she tackle sort of approaching her daughter to sort of gear her towards a right role model?
I think for the viewers especially, the main issue is that those YouTubers that we see and those in social media who wear hijab, how many of them are from the school of Ahlul Bayt? How many of them participate within our communities? How many of them are lecturers and speakers? How many of them teach Islamic law or aqaid, theology?
They don't tend to strike me as academic people, but they seem to be more popular culture type people.
Yeah.
I say that with the greatest of respect.
Indeed. I mean, these people don't come from a background of Islamic thought or, okay, they wear hijab and they do makeup tutorials. Did they ever mention anything about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi? Let's first distinguish that they're not Shia for a start, majority of them. And even if they're from another school of thought, are they propagating the message of Rasulullah? It's not happening. So what's going on?
But to counter that, I mean, only because I know as a female myself that I know that hearing sisters, and they say that it's a struggle for them to be in a society where you're judged upon your looks, you know, and they want to look attractive. They don't want to look like, oh, that one that's covered and, you know, and sort of diminished in society. So what would you say to sort of that?
That's true. I mean, we cannot take away, let's look at fashion in general. It comes under like individuality, comes in expression, freedom of expression. You know, it's not just clothing.
It's identity.
Yes, it is.
It's more than
Piercings,
that, right?
Tattooing. Is more than clothing now, and it is a representation of yourself, and like you said, brother, it's identity. So these youngsters that our new generation that are growing up, I mean, where is their Shia identity? Now Islam, when it comes to fiqh, we don't hold back on fashion. We don't disagree with fashion. We want our brothers to dress up in suits, looking smart and snazzy. We have nothing against that. Haircuts and big beards, we've got nothing against that, you know, keeping them groomed, nice. There's a big fashion with the big beards that happened a couple of years ago. Still going on, mashallah, still going strong.
Mashallah.
You know, with the comb over. Islam, we're not against this. You know, in fact, we promote this. Like, you know, look good, look smart. Same with the ladies as well. They should look presentable, should look professional. But there's a limit to, you know, looking presentable and looking provocative.
So I've got some feedback throughout time to time as a counsellor, as somebody that attends workshops, delivers one-to-one therapy, group therapy, whatever. And some of the feedback I get from some sections of the Muslim community in general, irrespective of sect, there's a common denominator that keeps coming up, is that it sounds as if, and I'm interpreting it in my way, that these type of people, vloggers, who their hijab may not be ideal, but they seem relevant. They're hot right now. You know, they're talking about things that we find interesting, whereas the ones with the quote-unquote proper hijab, they're a bit boring. They're a bit like, where are they? We can't hear them. We don't know what they're speaking about. That's why we're attracted to them.
The girl's also saying that mother's a dinosaur living in
Yeah,
the dark
this is
ages.
21st century, man. This is not hot. This is not popping. They're
It's
boring.
true. It's 100% true. I can't disagree with you. The people that are pushing the boundaries of hijab, let's say, or experimenting. I won't say push the boundaries as in they're rebelling. I won't say that they're rebelling.
Discovering their
I guess,
correct
they're
hijab,
discovering and experimenting. So these people who are experimenting with their hijab and fashion, they seemed more relevant and relative to the younger generation right now. And maybe they were looking at them and they'd be like, oh, I've got an older cousin that looks like her. Or, oh, I know someone at school that looks like her.
I can identify with
exactly.
her. Yeah.
You know, oh, she speaks the same language as me. Now we know that as people grow older, language changes. There's words that I use that my little brother doesn't use, and I have to Google what he's trying to say to me sometimes because there's new terminology. So this YouTuber is more relative, more relevant, more in tune with the culture of the youth. So I can see why they attract such attention. But when it comes to fiqh, they're not doing 100%. But we need to understand this as well, is that they have their own school of thought and they have their own fiqh. Maybe they follow the Maliki school of thought or Shafi or Hanbali, and they have their own rulings and ahkam for hijab. We must remember we are the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. We have our rulings which we have to abide by. and the Maraja say, that there has to be, the full hijab, covering of the hair, torso, the legs. And mashallah, the sister here is giving a great example of how hijab should be.
Mashallah, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. So I do understand how these people are attracted. And like you said, the ones that do, unfortunately not this sister, but other sisters are a bit boring or are not as...
or seldom seen. What I'm trying to, I think, guess what the point they're driving at is that the hijab and the modesty issue of women is that in many Muslim cultures and societies, women shouldn't be seen, women shouldn't be heard from, women should be invisible. Some people would even have a problem with a sister, a job that's correctly dressed as she is, because she shouldn't be there. So women should not be seen. And then these young sisters are saying, but I don't want to be like that. So there's a tension. How do we address this philosophically?
We need to go back and look at history. And we have the perfect examples in Sayyidah Zahra, in Sayyidah Zainab. And I mean, have you read Hadith Qissa? Have you come across Hadith Qissa? We know that it was one of the brothers, one of the Sahaba, Jabir, who narrates it. But who taught him the Hadith? Where did he learn it? It wasn't a man he learned it off. Does it say the Fatima herself that taught him that?
Yes, say.
So there is room for interaction, there is room for dialogue, there is room for learning and prospering. What Islam is against and what Ahkam is really against is that men and women initiating and provoking wrongful thought, wrongful intentions, getting a bit too comfortable, oh hey, how are you, you okay, yeah, and then an arm goes there, a little touch or something like that. No,
too familiar.
You're getting too familiar, getting too close.
Yeah.
Keep it the best advice or the best analogy I can give is like when you're in a workplace, how do you treat your female colleagues? How do you speak to them? It's professional, it's straight to the point, there's no waffling, and there's nothing extra to invite room for something that's going to lead towards haram. A lot of brothers would like to take an approach where prevention is the best cure and strictly and just go right away, creating some sort of barricade or barrier between the sisters and totally not even, which can be offensive as well.
That's such an interesting point you've mentioned there about the professional life we lead compared to sort of our Islamic one, because absolutely in the professional way we can have conversations with our male colleagues, females, interacting between ourselves, and there's a line of respect that we maintain. And why isn't that transporting into our religious environments where we are not being able to talk to the other opposite gender without, there's something being, that's something that's happening that's wrong. But why can't that level of respect maintain there? You have your, factual conversations to the point, respectful, and just interact normally.
Exactly.
Why is it that you no, you can't talk, it's haram, but But in terms of this question, so the mother. I'm sort of thinking, I don't know if you want to add in from a social perspective, but there's a relationship that we build in our children from a young age of, so these girls are kind of growing up with these role models, like you're saying, they're relatable, they're relevant, but to make Lady Fatima, Assalamu alaiha, Lady Zainab, all of these very, very powerful women, we talk about women empowerment in this century now, but when we look at our own history, those women live immortally. They have such an example. And would it be the best advice for the mother also to perhaps, now this is a 16-year-old, but perhaps for you who've got younger daughters, to build a relationship with these role models that may not be living today, but they are living in terms of their lessons of forever.
Indeed.
So
I'm not a parent myself, so I cannot advise on how to introduce.
But youngsters, you've got siblings,
and
you mentioned.
And how to influence this young girl and help motivate her to wear hijab. If I was to give some sort of advice, I'm not a professional, is that, try and explain the importance of hijab, try and understand. A lot of people take this for granted, is that if it wasn't for Sayyidah Zainab in Karbala and what happened, there would be no hijab today.
No.
So people say that Zainab went to Karbala. Imam Hussein died in Karbala so you could wear that scarf on your head, not for you to be showing your hair off.
Again, there's got to be an attachment, hasn't there?
Indeed. So going on to the question you were asking, we can introduce Sayyidah Zainab, Sayyidah Fatima, Sayyidah Khadija especially, very neglected, a very, very powerful woman, in a time where these Arab men would bury their daughters. When they would say her name, they'll put their hand on their heads out of respect, because she was a very, very wealthy woman who inherited her father's business and also progressed and also was very, very successful in this. So now, not only
It's the nobility, wasn't it?
exactly, not just the nobility, but now we've got a lady who most likely observed hijab. That's not even most likely, definitely observed hijab, and she's the richest woman in Arabia, and she's married to the Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So where does that put this idea of having women at home and having housewives, you know? And her being a woman of trade and business, I'm sure we can learn hijab etiquettes from her and how she dealt with men and how she dealt with
opposed to making
foreign
women invisible. You're
Exactly.
saying how to actually engage, but
correctly with the hijab.
Yeah.
And for youngsters, you know, to introduce these characters. Me personally, I mean, we do not truly appreciate these individuals of the Ahlul Bayt and those individuals that were amongst the Ahlul Bayt who really, really prospered and to help this religion reach to the masses and to really propagate the message of Islam. We don't understand them properly until we're a lot older and a lot more mature. Now, if I was to introduce, say, the Fatima to a 5-year-old, we could talk about her merits. We could talk about she was very special. We could talk about she read Quran really nicely. Oh, she was a mother. She was very loving. She was this. She was that. But when we introduce it to a 16-year-old or 18-year-old and we talk about, right, did you know her rights were taken away from her? And she stood up for her rights. She protested against the government. A figure like that is more appealing to the youth than some religious pious lady that's sitting on her her prayer mat with prayer beads. You know, if you turn around to the youth and say, do you know they took away Fadak from Sayyidah Fatima. The government took something away that belonged to her, and she went straight up there and look, read the speech. It's available in English. Look how she addresses them. Look how she uses academia, she uses Quran and Hadith to prove her point and try to get back what belongs to her.
Yes, so say there's something that comes to mind. There's an argument that the glass is either half full or half empty.
Yes.
So some people say, oh, these girls, the hijab is not proper, so they speak to them in this way or speak about them in this way, and it may be a discourager. Or sometimes we could look at it as glass is half full. It's a very difficult time for a Muslim to cover herself. So the fact they made an effort, we could use that some positive reinforcement. What do you think about that?
It's very important that we don't discourage our sisters from wearing the hijab. She's making an effort. She's trying.
In difficult times.
In a difficult time. I mean, she's a 16-year-old girl,
Western world,
probably going to high school. Let's be real. Maybe she's got a crush. Maybe someone's got a crush on her.
And she may not be in a community where there's a lot of Muslim girls, so she may be the only one in her school
that's
that
tough.
is wearing.
That's tough.
It's not
Exactly.
easy for young girls.
Exactly. And the other thing is maybe there's Muslim girls there who don't observe the hijab.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, she doesn't wear it, I wear it, but she's Muslim, I'm Muslim. So
friends are asking questions.
Is it less of a Muslim? Am I less of a Muslim if I don't wear the hijab, or if I'm wearing it half? So we really don't want to discourage and give a negative effect on our sisters.
Don't want to push them away.
Don't want to push them away because they're wearing the hijab and then it's like, oh, it's not proper this or that. Oh, what, stuff it, take it off, throw it in the bin, and that's it. We'll never see it again. And we've totally lost them.
Yeah,
it's a very, very delicate situation, and it is a situation that is going to last for many years, unfortunately. But what we need to do is keep reinforcing, keep discussing, keep motivating, and encouraging our sisters to wear the hijab, to wear the hijab properly, wear the hijab in a manner where it will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Because that's the first thing, isn't it? Not based on what the community thinks, not based on what parents think, not based on whether men lower their gaze or don't lower their gaze, but based on the relationship, that spiritual connection with Allah, isn't it?
Exactly. That's what it's all about. It is why what is Islam? It is to submit your will to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that we do, the ahkam laws that our maraja have said that we follow, which originate from the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and the Ahlul Bayt, those are there to help us strive towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to gain His pleasure.
And I think in exactly in that point, that when we're wearing the hijab for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we're wearing makeup and we're showing part of our hair, the core question is, why are we doing that? What is this young girl, what's any young lady trying to achieve? Are we trying to get the pleasure of people? Are we like, oh, I want someone to stare at me, but whose pleasure are we looking at?
I'm not a psychotherapist or a
We have
sociologist.
one.
I can't give comment to that. I think
But even on a human level, you know.
on a human level, I believe that there is a constant battle with the self.
Yeah.
And on that battle, I mean, to give to Islam, the greatest thing you can give to Islam is yourself. And that's your own desires as well. If you want to perm your hair, makeup, you want to look attractive, because it gives women self-confidence. Now, I'm not a woman, but I'm a brother. When I get my beard done, believe me, I feel a lot more confident. I feel a lot more clean, a lot more sharp. There's a little spring in my step, you know, positive energy. I'm sure women have something very, very similar when they like to make up their hair or make up their face, dress, you know, nicely. I'm sure.
There's whole papers written by a French psychoanalyst about this type of thing, about how clothes can affect a person's psychology and mood and things of this nature.
Exactly, and give a positive effect on the mood. So, you know, we understand this, but at the same time, to sacrifice that for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm sure there's great reward behind it. And great sense of freedom as well, that you are free from the shackles of society and culture, of fashion, of you know, makeup, what's appropriate, what's in, what's acceptable. And I believe
we have a caller on line one. Assalamu alaikum, caller, and what's your name and what comment would you like to make or question?
Assalamu alaikum. I'm really enjoying the show, mashallah. My question is related to hijab. Living in the West, I'm concerned about my daughters. My youngest has started to wear hijab, alhamdulillah. However, the other who is older needs convincing. How is it best to go about this?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the that question. It's obviously something that probably a lot of people face with their children. So basically 2 daughters, the elder one needs convincing, the younger one is wearing hijab. How would they go about it?
MashaAllah. I'm not an expert in raising children and teaching. I would assume, I think what we can do is probably, what I suggest a parent to do is speak to the younger one and see what motivated her to wear the hijab correctly, and what was what was the drive. And inshallah, you know, the sisters, so, you know, they've got the same genetics. Maybe, you know, you can use the same methodology, same techniques, same philosophy, same understanding for the older one. Also, let's not take away that, you know, teenagers are very rebellious. They're going through a phase of, you know, searching for themselves, understanding their identity. Hormones are flying everywhere. Their mood swings are, you know, ridiculous. So
indeed,
we need to. It's a very, very fragile situation. We need to be patient and we need to be delicate, you know, with it into introducing, you know, such hijab. But I think that, you know, let us go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and let us see how he introduced hijab to the community, how he introduced Islam to the community, which was through peace and love and patience. Let's not forget, they threw stones at him. He used to come home with cuts and bruises covered in blood. But was there any retaliation? Was there any anger? There was nothing. There was patience, there was love, and there was persistence and consistency. And inshallah, through that, we can achieve some success. But the main thing is that what I would like for all parents is to try and help the sisters understand the importance of hijab. There's a famous YouTube video you've seen, a girl in hijab in New York or something. It's a non-Muslim. She walks in New York without hijab, just normally dressed, and she's moderately dressed. It's not even provoking or inappropriate. Moderately dressed. She's walking through New York and she's getting catcalled left, right, and center. She puts on the abaya, she puts on the hijab, she goes through the same streets, and I didn't see any catcalling at all. Maybe there was from a distance or something, but it was significantly lower. I'm
just aware of the time. We aren't going to finish, but if we could just get to the crescendo of this, because we want to get the most out of it, but we just want to finish up in time.
So when it comes to the phone call and also the case study, remember Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how he propagated the message of Islam. Let us be patient, let us be persistent and consistent, and let us really try and push the meaning and the understanding of hijab. And inshallah, with the du'as and inshallah with the blessing of Sayyidah Fatima, in the end we will have a muhajiba who practices and wears the hijab in the correct manner and is motivating and inspirational to other sisters to also wear it. Inshallah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. And thank you all for staying with us for the duration.